Remember the Forgotten.
Chapter 26. You know what happened to Paz.
He tricked me! After him! Get me that eye!
As Jade pointed into the darkness, her pack of creatures each turned their heads simultaneously and took off sprinting into the woods after Zircon, moving faster and louder than a pack of wolves. Jade looked to the Forgotten as it continued to plough through the clearing and scowled at it. She turned to look behind her, then back at the creature for one more moment. Then, finally, she turned completely away and sprinted in the opposite direction, disappearing into the night, just as once before. Aurora, now barely sure of where she was, looked in horror at the monster with one red eye. She too turned and ran into the night. By now, Sapphire had managed to pull herself to her feet and had struggled over to where Pasley still lay in a far too large pool of his own blood. His eyes were barely open, facial muscles straining desperately as he forced the breath through his lips. As James stepped up from behind Sapphire, staring over her shoulder in shock, Pasley lifted his shaking arm weakly off the ground to point just behind them, horror reflecting clearly in his eyes.
"Run!" he told them. "Go!"
Tears streaming down her face, Sapphire nodded, stepping backwards and grabbing James' arm. She tried to pull him away, but he didn't budge, still staring at Pasley, even after his body slowly went limp and his eyes glazed over. The Forgotten's shadow crawled across the ground, dousing the light of the fire and plunging them into further darkness.
"James!"
Sapphire shouted at him, emotion choking her voice. She pulled again, and this time James reluctantly let the force pull him backwards. As she dragged him harder and faster, he finally turned around and began running with her. His head turned away from Paz's lifeless corpse slowly, until he was focused only on the dark forest ahead of him. Into the darkness they went, as if the world behind them was disappearing. Together, the pair ran. They ran, past dark shadows and through brush, to leave behind them the light of the campfire, and, so too, the horror with it.
"Wait!"
James slowed to a stop amongst the dense trees, suddenly, a frantic look on his face. Sapphire looked back at him as tears streamed down from his eyes.
I feel like we're forgetting someone," he muttered. "It's only us, James," Sapphire assured him hastily. "We need to hurry."
Back in the clearing, Samuel knelt on the ground, arms slumped and head raised to look at the shape looming toward him. The long, flickering tendrils of the fire reflected in his eyes as they glazed over, and, as the shadow of the Forgotten finally covered his form completely, closed.